Hello, and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. In the series, The New World Order, Media and Press Releases. Wow, so far, this has been a trip making these videos. This will be number 15. And I notice on my little chart here, keeping track of the years and how many I do. Six. So you got part 1, part 2 for 2007, 10, nothing for 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I've already been reviewing some documents for 16. So we'll be involving those in this year's effort. So I think I'm going to do one on 2011. And fundamentally, it's basically New World Order, I should say, evidence that they're planning for a New World Order. Goings on behind the scenes. And it's almost enough to make you cry. Oh my, that's all I gotta say. This video ought to be the bomb. With that said, let me move on and let you decide. I'm supposed to just report. The SPLC ostracizes patriots. Again, according to Debbie Morgan, host securing Liberty Radio. A William Lewis and Gary French-Eye film, Enemy of the State, Implementation of Martial Law, Camp FEMA Part 2, Obedience to the Law is Freedom. Obedience to the law is freedom. So remember, back in 2011, I was researching. I think from these boxes of material I have in these videos, and the books I've read, the videos I've read, the pictures I printed out, the magazines I've read, going on 11 years, almost full time, many hours every day, every week, every month, every year, while I'm living my normal life like anybody else. It's been quite a trip. But back then when I started this, I thought, all my life I'd wanted to be an author, write books. And I've written a little bit. Even when I worked at a major aerospace company, I wrote manuals, technical manuals. And once I wrote a book on how to sell something. So, the SPLC ostracizes patriots. Like I said, listen up on this video. And if it doesn't blow you away, I will be surprised. Columbia, Missouri, March 18th, 2011. It's spring, and you know what that means. The Southern Poverty Law Center has issued its Spring Intelligence Report. The Active Patriots Group in the United States of 2010. So the Southern Poverty Law Center likes to keep track of the patriot groups in the USA. So it's always good entertainment. Since when is it bad to be considered a patriot? I'm only reading my highlighted portion, so please look this up. There's much more than what I'm going to read on all of these documents on this video. Alright, just to set the record straight for POTOC, the SPLC, and the rest of the world, Camp FEMA and Don't Tread on Me are feature-length, well-researched documentaries. So you might want to go watch those. Camp FEMA and Don't Tread on Me. I have those those CDs. It's funny how we do things differently now. but back then they were selling CDs. Take Back Washington and Restore the Republic are websites, and William Lewis Films is a film production company consisting of 2 people. Also making news were several legislators who made the SPLC's Dirty Dozen list of legislators, 2 of which are guests in the film Don't Tread on Me. Both are painted as major troublemakers by the SPLC publication. The film, remember, it is listed among the 824 anti-government patriot groups, is a berated as produced by anti-government conspiratists Gary Frenchie, and claims to offer sound solutions to take back rights stolen by our out-of-control, despotic federal government. That's a bunch of words. The film actually does pose a couple of very interesting suggestions that might stop the treacherous government. One is a tax escrow account. Another is the possibility of the states to adopt a stable monetary system. Yet another calls for the individual states to assert their rights to state sovereignty. In the film, Oklahoma State Representative Charles Key and Missouri State Senator Brian Neves speaks out about our uncontrollable government and the need for states to reassert their 10th Amendment right to govern as they see fit. Key even discusses the tax escrow account. For that, both are considered supporters of the anti-government movement. So you got state senators and state representatives saying that states should reassert their own powers, and for that, these government-elected state officials are considered anti-government people. What both want, however, is the same thing many of this country's patriots, including film producer Frenchie, want: a return to our roots as a constitutional republic. How is wishing our government would adhere to the Constitution anti-government? In truth, it is anything but anti-government. All right, continue on. To the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, in the words of Gary Frenchie, I want to extend my gratitude to the Southern Poverty Law Center for keeping track of our successes and make it easier for me to find like-minded patriots. So I hope you got that. Apparently every year the SPLC comes out with a list of active patriots groups, which I guess it considers anti-government, along with individuals, including politicians, and alternate news sites and video producers and, I guess, researchers, as threats to the world, to the New World Order, to the New Age, to the gay agenda, to the propaganda about global warming, global cooling, ice age, the crashing of the economic system, which seems planned, and everybody is being beguiled right now. A friend of mine who's a millionaire, she said, "Wow, I'm making so much money in the stock market." But even she admits that one day they will pull the plug. For example, apparently the Rockefellers gained a huge amount of their wealth back in the early 1910, 1920s in the oil business, and have continued to make a huge amount of money in that business. But recently, before the low gas prices, which pulled the rug from underneath the oil companies and many countries. Think about it. Oil producing companies maybe were raking in 10 billion a month, are now raking in 5 billion a month. And I know what you're thinking. So what? Well, that money was supporting a system built on 10 billion a month. And now 50% of those people are going to suffer, if not more. So I think it's oil warfare right now, economic warfare, like Sky Spring and the Sky and HAARP systems, weather warfare. And then, of course, with the gay agenda, transgender, and other things, and destroying Christianity, is religious warfare. So they're, like all wars, they're coming at us from every angle. So here we go on the Intelligence Report, Spring 2011, issue number 141, from the Southern Poverty Law Center, as it says. On the top of this document, and down here was a link on the bottom. This is going to be interesting. Patriots groups that were active in 2010. Of these groups, 330 were militias, marked with an asterisk, and the remaining includes common law courts. Whoa! Common law courts are a concern. Why would that be the case? That would be like constitutional law versus martial law. Remember that. Publishers, ministers, and citizen groups. Generally, patriot groups define themselves as opposed to the New World Order, engage in groundless conspiracy theories, and advocate or adhere to extreme anti-government doctrines. Listing here does not imply that the groups themselves advocate or engage in violence or other criminal activities or are racist. The list was compiled from field reports, patriot publications, the internet, law enforcement sources, and news reports. Groups identified by the city, county, region where they are located. So let's say you're in Alabama and you belong to the 2nd Alabama Militia, the Alabama Shoals Badgers, the Alarm and Muster, the modern-day Alarm Raiders, the America Can Be Free, the Confederate States Home Guard, the Constitution Party, the Free Patriot Press, Jefferson Rangers, the John Birch Society, Oath Keepers, Ordo Militis Gratis, Threer, We the People. Then you would be on the list. On the Southern Poverty's Intelligence Report. Oh, I like some of these names. So in Alaska, the Alarm and Muster, the modern-day Alarm Raiders. So a lot of these are statewide, nationwide. The Alaska Citizens Militia, the Alaska Peacemakers Militia, the Confederate States Home Guard, the Constitution Party, the Alaskan Independence Party, the John Birch Society, Oath Keepers, Second Amendment Task Force, We the People, and then they have a little another chart here of the highest number of anti-government groups by state, 2010, Southern Poverty Law Center. So if you belong to these patriotic groups in your state, trying to protect state laws and the Constitution, apparently you are anti-government. Michigan has 50 groups, Indiana has 35, Texas 30, Georgia 22, New York, Ohio 18, and the largest groups are the We Are Change, 101 chapters, Oath Keepers, 58 chapters, Constitution Party, 46 chapters. And We the People, 45 chapters. So let's just say I joined one of these chapters, the Constitution Party. That sounds good. Then I would be considered anti-government, I suppose. Arizona, Alarm and Muster, the modern-day Alarm Raiders. American Grand Jury in Arizona. American Patriot Friends Network, Arizona. Arizona Citizens Militia. And the Arizona Militia. And I guess it goes on here. Arizona Constitution, John Birch, Arizona Oath Keepers, Arkansas, Alarm and Muster, Arizona, Arkansas Militia. You got one in Eastern, one in Little Rock, one in Northeast, one in South Central, Southwest, Constitution Party, Fayetteville, John Birch Society, Liberty Tree Rangers, Militia of Washington County, Oath Keepers, Statewide, We Are Change. So here I am back in 2011 doing my research, and I run across documents like this. This is interesting. Patriot and military groups, 1995 to 2010. So from 95 to 1999, 95 and 96 was real heavy, where my finger is. And then as the years go by, there were much fewer groups. But then today, 2010, when I did this research, look how many groups there are on the other end of this picture from my finger. Interesting. All right, how about Colorado? American First Party, American Freedom Network, Constitution Party, Discharge DEP, E-Military Manuals, Easy Remedy for You. Interesting names for some of these groups. John Birch Society, Oath Keepers, We Are Change, We the People. Connecticut, Committee on Safety, Connecticut 51st Militant. Connecticut Patriot Alliance, Connecticut Survival Alliance. There's more. I'm just going to skip over these and make my point. Delaware Constitution Party, Oath Keepers, We the People. District of Columbia, Oath Keepers, We the People, WorldNet Daily Books. Wow, WorldNet Daily. Florida, Alarm and Muster, the modern-day Alarm Raiders. American First Party of Florida, Confederate States Home Guard, Constitution Party, Florida Constitution Guard, Florida Free Militia, Florida Preparedness Group, which is in Daytona, Gainesville, Miami, Orlando, Palm Beach County, St. Augustine, St. Lucie, statewide, and Tampa. The Florida Preparedness Group. Georgia, Alarm and Muster, Confederate State Home Guard, Constitution Party, Georgia Militia. Wow, the Georgia Militia is in Bartow County, Bearsville, Bullock, Camden, Catoosa, Chatham County, Cobb, Coweta, Douglas, Franklin County, Fulton, Gwinnett, Jackson, Meriwether, Paulding, Richmond, statewide, Stevens County. Another party, It's Over, in Morganton. John Birch Society, statewide, Land Militia of Georgia. So what do you got? 800 of these groups. I'll just flash the pages from here. This is page number 7. Hawaii, Idaho. Indiana. Idaho. Indiana, Iowa, page 10. So in one sense, this is kind of a little bit of good news. There's a lot of patriotic groups out there who are looking out for the United States from these people who are trying to plan the New World Order. Louisiana, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, page 13. So I'm going to just do this a little quicker now, but you get the point. Page 14, a full page. Page 15, 16, a full page. Page 17, Nevada, New Hampshire. Page 18, New Mexico, New York. Page 19, New York, North Carolina. Page 20, North Carolina, North Dakota. Page 21, Oklahoma. Page 22, Oregon. Page 23, Pennsylvania. Page 24, South Carolina. Page 25, Texas. Page 26, the Liberty Regulators. What state is that? Texas. Texas got 2 pages full. 3 pages full. Militias. Patriots. Utah. (27, 28, 29). West Virginia. Page 30. Wisconsin, Wyoming. So about 800 groups all over the United States. And the Southern Poverty Law Center publishes an intelligence report every year as the anti-government groups out there bent on preventing the New World Order. They want to publish it as bad news to people. Apparently all the anti-God types, New Age, New World Order, brainwashed zombies. But for some of us, it's a good news to know there's that many groups out there. We could sign up and join one of those groups, which I might suggest a lot of people look into it. Look up this document. See if there's something near you. Now, they say it's a conspiracy. That people like me and everybody else would believe there's a New World Order planned. But unless you're an idiot and you didn't hear George Bush Sr. say it, George Bush Jr. say it, Bill Clinton say it, Obama say it, Blair, Gordon Brown in Britain say it, the Pope say it, Kissinger said it, they're all saying it. And everything they're doing, if you pay attention, there are obvious signs that they're doing it. Microchipping everybody. Snowden, where he reports they're spying on everybody. Microchipping our debit cards and credit cards now. Microchipping children in Texas and California, Florida, that I have verified. So hopefully by the time this document's over, people might be a little convinced there's something to be concerned about. Apathy, ignoring what they are doing, will only cause us personal destruction as we the people, middle class, poor people, while the couple percent who own everything get wealthier. So anyways, the Vatican calls for world government. So if you didn't think it was all real, the Vatican has come out and publicly said this is needed. October 25, 2011. So again, here's me in 2011. And of course I was doing the same thing in 2012, 13, 14, 15, starting in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, going on 11 years. So Tim Worstall, I have opinions about economics, finance, and public policy. So I'm not sure, Forbes contributor, so I don't know if he's an opinion on Forbes magazine. But this isn't just the implication. It's the explicit call in the latest from the Vatican that we need to move to a system of world government. I want to see how that's going to be good for anybody. Where admittedly, a lot of people will exclaim that the government doesn't do anything right. And if you're an observing person like me who pays attention, sees things, we know they don't do anything right. And a lot of them are crooked corporations. 2008 stock market collapse, where they gave themselves trillions, which apparently they were using to consolidate their world power, not to make life better for we the people. People are still losing their homes in this 2016 February. If Vatican cardinals have yet to join the Occupy Wall Street protesters, a document released by the Holy See calling for world authority to crack down on capitalism suggests some are considering it. So, what's the opposite of capitalism is communism. Who created communism, which would have been the Bolshevik Jewish folks, who took over Russia and killed 100 million Christians and other good people back in 1917. Think of that. They created communism. Communism is another word for socialism. They always kind of make the names sound like nice things. There's nothing socialistic about what they're doing. Look at all the homelessness and destruction going on across America. And a lot of people who live in wealthy neighborhoods or whatever, they don't see it. I've had people tell me that. Hey, my 401k is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. As someone educated and raised a Catholic, I can tell you what the problem is here. It's the otherworldly part of the Vatican's worldview. In an institution which is based upon preparing us for a life after this one, that's no bad thing, of course. And continually reminder that we should raise our eyes from the mundane cares of this world and consider our place in the eternity to come. So they're continually reminding people to raise our eyes from the mundane cares of this world. A lot of people tell me, what do I care about homeless people? Or somebody losing their home, or somebody over there, as long as I'm doing okay. However, it does in fact lead to a certain naivety about what is actually happening in the world. And tell that to the 7 or so more nations in the Middle East and Africa, and Northern Europe and Asia area that have been machine gunned to death and are being machine gunned to death today. And then, of course, they're shipping all these people in the middle of the night to the European Union in the United States. Apparently, it looks to me, it's pretty obvious to say, they're trying to get all of the natives, the people who have been living in the Middle East for a couple thousand years, out of there, gone. Who benefits from that? Israel, of course. That's the plan. In a couple thousand years, when they were assisted by Moses to be freed from the Egyptian slavery, so they say, and they went to the land of Canaan in the Bible, that whole territory was populated with people. And apparently they had to kill all those people to take over all those lands, biblically speaking. And I'm sure in some of my documents we will be reviewing that. So anyways, the second page on this document about the Vatican calling for a new world order. And if you can't believe the Vatican, who are you going to believe? When the guy gets on TV, the Pope, and says it, I guess that's what they want. The question is, do people really believe it'll be a good thing for us? We see how they're taking us down economic destruction path. The idea is that we ought to move up to something like a beefed up United Nations, which is controlled by the occultists. Go look at the meditation room of the United Nations. You'll see all the occult symbolism. A supranational body capable of, you could say the United Nations just like another temple or lodge, like a Freemasonic lodge, Illuminati, Rosicrucian, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Bilderberger Group, Bohemian Grove, Club of Rome, and so many more. These measures ought to be conceived of as some of the first steps in view of the public authority with universal jurisdiction, as a first stage in a longer effort by the global community to steer its institutions towards achieving the common good. None of this is intended to be common good. Look at the Georgia USA Guidestones. It says they want to reduce the population to 500 million worldwide. If there really is 6 billion plus on the planet, 6 billion people have to die. I can't begin to tell you how many people are under attack by the sky spraying, vaccines, economic destruction, helicopters spraying machine gun fire all over the Middle East, scatter bombs dropped from jets, economic destruction, Ukraine, a lot of places in the world are under attack. Europe. The United Nations has, recently you understand, had the Sudan as a member of the Human Rights Committee. Heck, it's even had Libya as the chair of the committee. Yes, the Gaddafi-era Libya. So they had all these people like Gaddafi and the leader of Egypt and the leader of Iraq, and now they're trying to take down Syria, Assad, the leader. They're having all these people murdered or fleeing for their lives to neighboring countries and putting in their puppet leaders. How's that going to be good for us? Given the spendthrifts' orgies, ignorance, panderers, and outright thieves that actually manage to get into the positions of power where they can run the political process. Yes, both democratically elected and self-appointed. We really don't want to be giving them any more power. Actually, we'd rather like to reclaim much of the power they already have, most especially over the economy and finance, which is where the Vatican has gone wrong. They're just not noting how things actually turn out in this vale of tears. They actually think that politics is something done by people of goodwill and honesty. So there you have it, a couple documents. So there you have it. Vatican wants a new world order. Everybody else is talking about it. They're planning for it. Southern Poverty Law Center makes an intelligence report about the many militias and patriot groups out there, which they call as anti-government. And this was me back in 2011, investigating what's going on, telling myself I didn't think I had the opinion or have the right to have an opinion or make a video or write a book or whatever, until I researched this for 10 years. One of the documents I come across was Agenda 21 Summary. This is put out by the Agenda 21 Summary, apparently published by some jgary.com. United Nations Department of Public Information. So you're going to see the United Nations and the Vatican and the Pentagon apparently attacking all the countries in the Middle East, and the people who run our country, the elected, bought and paid for politicians, and the president are all vying for, have said they are going to create a new one world order. And apparently the gay agenda, transgender, is of high importance, and destroying our natural resources, crops and other things. Our very ability to be able to take care of ourselves is being destroyed with the sky spraying and the HAARP systems causing the weather craziness. And also those things can be used to attack humans. So they're all working towards a one world order, and it appears to be, with the symbolism, as much as people don't want to believe this, neither did I, to be some kind of anti-Bible thing, satanic, Luciferic, as Albert Pike and Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and so many others, Aleister Crowley, interdimensional communications with apparently some kind of demonic beast that looks like the gray aliens. That sounds like a wacko sentence, but the evidence seems to be there. All right, on December 22, 1989, the United Nations General Assembly, so this goes all the way back to 1989, called for a global meeting that would devise strategies to halt and reverse the effects of environmental degradation in the context of increased national and international efforts to promote sustainability and environmentally sound development in all countries. Agenda 21, adopted by the United Nations Conference on Environmental and Development on 14 June 1992, is the international community's response to that request. Like the international community wants to enslave itself. The bought and paid for leaders. So you like how they write these documents. It is a comprehensive program of action to be implemented from now and into the 21st century by governments, development agencies, United Nations organizations, independent sector groups, in every area where human economic activities affects the environment. So when they fence off much of the planet to human beings, as I've discussed in these photos, which is the plan, one and the same, the red will be off limits to human beings, period. Biodiversity, and we went over that document, we're going to go over it again. And apparently there'll be core areas where humans are not allowed to go, with buffer zones. Sounds like the rich elite don't want to be annoyed by humans, or maybe they're going to be mining minerals there with slave labor camps and they don't want anybody to see. All in the name of this stuff we're seeing here. And they always say nice things, but they're not nice. Or we can change course. We can improve the living standard of those who are in need, while they're buying hollow point bullets, building FEMA camps, making legislation to disarm and control guns, and destroy our economy, as Alan Greenspan said before Congress, etc., etc., etc. This is what they say in print. We can better manage and protect the ecosystems and bring about a more prosperous future for us all. No nation can achieve this on its own, states Mr. Maurice Strong, Secretary General of the conference, in the preamble to Agenda 21. Together we can get in a global partnership for sustainable development. What they're talking about is taking over everybody's property rights, everybody's freedom, and apparently reducing the population. And as the Zionist Jewish Talmud says, the best of the goyim shall be killed. So pretty much all those resources in the Middle East will be available to Israel because the Arabs are being killed and run out of there, and they're sending them to the EU and America. And elsewhere, I presume. Principle 1 in this Agenda 21. Human beings are at the center of concerns for sustainable development. Principle 2. States have, in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and the principles of international law, the sovereign right to exploit their own resources pursuant to their own environmental and development policies. So the states will have the right to exploit the resources, not the property owners. And the responsibility to ensure that activities within their jurisdiction or control do not cause damage to the environment of the other states or areas beyond the limits of national jurisdictions. I'm skipping a couple. Principle 5. You need to go look this up for yourself. I'm not trying to read everything on this. This is too much to read. I would never get anywhere. Principle 5. All states and all people shall cooperate in the essential task of eradicating poverty as an indispensable requirement for sustainable development in order to decrease the disparities in the standards of living and better meet the needs of the majority of the people of the world. Meanwhile, they're buying hollow point bullets, FEMA camps, poisonous vaccines. Ted Turner, Bill Gates say they want to reduce the population. The prince over there in London says he wishes he could come back in the next life as a virus or something and kill everybody. Just saying. They're destroying the middle class, so they want what they call a two-part system, the elites and the rest of us as slaves, being microchipped also. Think about that. Hunger Games, the movie. Principle 9, I'm just jumping over this. States should cooperate to strengthen endogenous capable building for sustainable development by improving scientific understanding through exchange of scientific and technical knowledge. So they make the whole thing sound real nice. Of course, it's the public face. Here's another thing here. I'm just skipped over a bunch of stuff I highlighted. Another spot in an otherwise cloudy future, this is called a shift in attitude, is a shift in attitude on the part of the two of the world's critical players, the United States and China. Both Washington, due to the Clinton-Gore administration, and Beijing, with their new comprehensive national Agenda 21 plan, seem much more receptive to the concept of sustainable development. It basically means communism. People will not have the freedoms to do what they want, go where they want. It's communism. However, it remains to be seen how these new attitudes translate into action. Meanwhile, I remember back in 2010, 2011, we all had that scare about Comet Elenin. So this is the Tehran Times. Comet double feature. Comet Elenin and Gerard now showing in the night sky. Okay, here. This was 29 August 2011. Some comments are like old friends. They keep coming back at regular intervals to visit. These are called periodic comets. Comet Halley was the first such comet to be identified by Edmund Halley back in 1705. It returns to the inner solar system every 75 or 76 years. In its last appearance, it was in 1986, and its next will be in 2061. At present, Halley is out just beyond Neptune's orbit. Other comets are one-time visitors. They come in to visit us from the Oort cloud, warm themselves for a few months by the sun, and then head back out to the farthest reaches of the solar system. So to cut the story short, it was a bunch of hoopla back then, but I will tell you if you go look it up, when it did come through, I was paying attention and I made some, I documented it on the Soho.com camera in space that watches the sun, and you could see it whip around. But what was interesting, the government shut down for 3 days, if everybody can remember that. And Obama was in Denver in the underground bunker city there because they didn't know what was going to happen. But did they alert the people? Then they had the next one, ISIN. That they didn't really alert the people, but a lot of people were in the know that our researchers were paying to that the following year. So anyways, my point is, this is 2016. And even Infowars.com, Alex Jones, they're all raving about the incoming Nibiru Planet X right now. The fear-mongering is off the chart. Fear, threats, and all this stuff at the beginning of 2016. So back in 2012, I guess on this document, I thought I was doing 2011. But apparently this document got in here, so let's just look at it, because it appears to be applicable to the other ones that match it. Oklahoma City bombing conspiracy theories. I read the book, The Oklahoma Bombing, about that. Let me get it. Almost up to half of this book reading it. I'm convinced after reading it, and you can see all my tabs, from the details and everything involving the government, it appears that McVeigh was a plant working for the government on government payroll. I just flipped it open here. I'll just read this one thing. Like Oswald, McVeigh departed the military under mysterious circumstances. Page 77. And like Oswald, an ex-Marine with a top security clearance, who appeared to defect to the Soviet Union, McVeigh would appear to be a disgruntled ex-Army sergeant who happened to drift into the fringes of the far right. Yet like Oswald, who lived and worked amongst the bastions of the far right in Dallas, while purporting to be a Marxist, McVeigh was not the ultimate right-wing fanatic he was made out to be. In a letter to his hometown newspaper in February 1992, he wrote, "At a point when the world has seen communists falter as an imperfect system to manage people, democracy seems to be headed down the same road." Wow, McVeigh wrote this. Sounds like a description of my research and all this material I'm going over. Maybe we have to combine ideologies to achieve a perfect utopian government. Remember, government-sponsored healthcare was a communist idea. So my point is, detail by detail, and the people he was talking to and the things that were happened in this book, pretty thick, has convinced me that something's not right, like the Kennedy assassination. Just saying, FYI. So back in 2011 and 12, I was I researched as much as anybody can these conspiracy theories. What's really going on? What's it all about, really? So anyways, there's one here on Wikipedia. You can go look this up. And I highlighted some material. Try to be brief on this, make my point. Although an indictment against McVeigh and Nichols alleged that they conspired with others, unknown to the grand jury, prosecutors and later McVeigh himself portrayed the bombing as solely the work of McVeigh and Nichols. Additional conspirators. This is the Wikipedia research. Several witnesses reported seeing a second person around the time of the bombing. Investigators would later call him John Doe 2. In 1997, the FBI arrested Michael Bersikia, a member of the Aryan Republican Army, who resembled the artist's rendering of John Doe based on eyewitness accounts. However, later they released him. U.S. federal government involvement. This is Wikipedia, you can go look it up. Another theory alleged that President Bill Clinton had either known about the bombing in advance or had approved the bombing. It is also believed that the bombing was done by the government to frame the militia movement and to enact anti-terrorism legislation while using McVeigh as a scapegoat. Remember, we started this video with the Southern Poverty Center anti-government intelligence report, Southern Poverty Law Center, of all the militias and groups out there in the world. So they had to pass legislation to enforce the anti-terrorism legislation. So that's why they did a lot of these false flags, as it seems to be clear even with the gun shootings and the gun laws. And there's going to be some more proof on this as we move along. In September 28, 2009, Jesse Trentuda, a Salt Lake City attorney, released security tapes that he obtained from the FBI through the Freedom of Information Act that show the Murrah building before and after the blast from the security cameras. The tapes are blank at points before 9:02 a.m. the time of detonation. The tapes are blank before the time of detonation? Wow. Trentuda said the government's explanation for the missing footage is that the tape was being replaced at the time. Well, if you know anything about security tapes, they're continuous. Said Trentuda, 4 cameras in 4 different locations going blank at the same time on the morning of April 19th, 1995. There ain't no such thing as a coincidence. So that was one document. I've got others. This one is 2012 also. Oklahoma City bombing facts and conspiracy theories. I'm only going to read my highlighted portions. If you're interested, you can go look this stuff up. You can get that book. The explosion outside the building and below its child daycare center occurred at 9:02 Central Time. So what my point there is there was a daycare center. And apparently some people made a little memorial about all those kids that were killed. And I'm reminded of all the Illuminati-type killing of children as sacrifices, satanic rituals. Look at the people in 911. More on this document. Contrast this with the England blast effects study, a 56-page report that includes photographs and data from the England Air Force blast test, as well as extensive technical analysis of those tests which concluded that the damage to the Murrah Federal Building is not the result of a truck bomb itself. I remember back when I was researching this, it was one police officer that wanted to try to see if he could rescue people, and some federal officers or people demanded he leave, and one of the things he noticed were there were other bombs strapped to the pilings inside the building. It wasn't just a truck out front with McVeigh. They had actual bombs strapped to the pilings. And remember, this building was also the FBI office, or CIA, some intelligence service offices in this federal building, with tons of historical and current records on crimes and prosecution cases. Huh? But rather due to other factors, such as locally placed charges within the building itself. I'm only reading my highlighted portion. You can go look up this document. There's so much more here. Just key in the title up there. This was at this website. So puzzle pieces. This guy's just listing endless amounts of proof on these documents. Pages after pages of different resources for proof that there's something wrong with the Oklahoma City building bombing. A geopolitical perspective on bad politics that are creating the fall of America. Oklahoma City, 2 high-tech blast BATF, quick demolition hides evidence. So they, just like 911, they quickly demolish the rubble. Development of a New World Order in the U.S. Federal Reserve, IRS, Illuminati conspiracy versus Constitution. These are just more research intelligence reports on the Oklahoma City bombing. 50,000 veterans, biologic, chemical weapons. Unearthing the roots of the Oklahoma City bombing, the intersection of right-wing popularism, scapegoating, conspiracyism, government misconduct, anti-government terrorism, the far-right Nazi ideology, background articles, still unquestioned answers, lots of articles and links, including the phone interview with the alleged undercover government provocateur behind the Oklahoma City bombing. Again, pages after pages of apparent evidence and problems with the Oklahoma City bombing, like 911 and Sandy Hook and many more, according to my research. Timothy McVeigh, a Manchurian candidate, the Oklahoma City bombing. Do not question authority. The anti-terrorism bill. You see what they had to do? They had to get elected officials to vote on these anti-terrorism bill, so they had to have events like the Oklahoma City bombing happen. The lunatic fringe, Hoppy Heidelberg, the Mannlichen and Carcino bomb, sources, General Patton's report on the OKC, General Parton's bombing, message board. So if you look up this document, you could spend a couple weeks looking at the evidence from these people. Here's another page here within this document. Oklahoma City, Day 1, authored by Michelle Moore. The event was the release of a 90-minute video made inside the perimeter by a technical sergeant, Melvin Sumter, of the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department. I'm only reading my highlighted portions as usual. A brief 7-minute section of Sumter's videotape reveals firefighters removing weapons, ammunition, and explosives from the rubble of the building under the direction of federal law enforcement agents, with crowds of other workers observing nearby, including Sumter. Sumter's footage shows at 10:30 a.m. call for the evacuation of workers immediately following the discovery of other bombs in the building. The arrival of the bomb squad personnel and the removal of rescuers from the area, including the evacuation of Sumter himself. The discovery of the canisters of fulminate of mercury was made by local rescue workers. The removal of the undetonated explosive devices from the building was executed by local bomb squad personnel after the majority of workers had been evacuated from the building and all people in the area had been moved back at least 4 blocks. So like 911, which they had to pull the buildings, they were apparently building 7 definitely, and it seems pretty clear. 1 and 2, something else was involved other than a plane hitting a steel structure. Suddenly, after the feds had stood by their false official version, for 5 months, they changed their minds. Now they are going to admit that explosives had been found in the building after all. But which explosives? Expert analysis, detailed in Appendix C, confirmed that small, carefully placed demolition charges had indeed been present inside the building, and the disaster on the morning of April 19, 1995 was the result of a multi-phase plan The bomb in on the street served as the cover for the true cause of the massive destruction to the building. So McVeigh and his truck were supposed to be the cover for the real explosion of the building. And the perpetrators of the street bomb had cooperated, possibly unknowingly, with other parties to bring about the most devastating terrorist act in American history. Then there's more here, another document. The first one was called The Oklahoma City Bombing Conspiracy Theorist on Wikipedia. The second one was the titled Oklahoma City Bombing Facts and Conspiracy Theories on the top there. And the third one is Oklahoma City Bombing Facts, PAC. And a few highlighted portions. A copy of the facts with the Oklahoma Geographical Survey ID numbered Record of Bombs Detonated at Federal Courthouse in Oklahoma City. Another highlighted portion, University of Oklahoma Geological Survey Department has seismographs of the explosions. So apparently it wasn't that truck with fertilizer out front, that there were explosives inside on the pilings, knowing full well there were lots of records of the FBI inside there about a lot of people and pending cases, past cases, all that. So I suppose if you were building and working towards a new one world order, a lot of people and information would have to be destroyed. Anyways, video affidavit of Jane Graham, a survivor from the 9th floor who witnessed suspicious men with what could be considered C4 explosives, wire and plans of the building arguing in the parking garage, who promptly got quiet and put away their material after noticing Mrs. Graham after watching the video. Sounds similar to 911. The buildings were blocked off on weekends, security people, nobody allowed, so they could get inside. What were they installing in the columns of those buildings? As men she had noticed in the building prior to the bombing wearing General Services Administration, GSA, maintenance uniforms that she did not recognize as GSA employees, plus her testimony of feeling the building shake several times before the main blast, leaving credence to the fact there may have been explosives planted inside the building of the columns. Sounds like 911, Jiminy Crickets. Selected portions from the Sumter video recording, so go look this up, the Sumter guy, which was made by Technical Sergeant Melvin Sumter, S-U-M-T-E-R, of the Oklahoma City Sheriff's Department, with views of the damaged Moriah building and surrounding area on the day of the bombing. People moving away because got another bomb over there. Sheriff bomb disposal crew parts from exploded vehicle. So again, here I am back then doing my research, year after year. Got something else here. There's a book here, A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, 1995. Bombing was a false flag event. Sandy Hook. Batman movie shooting. The guy runs into a church and starts shooting up people, black people in the church. Boston bombing. London train bombing. Paris bombing, San Bernardino shootings. You see, they have to do these things to get the public to believe there are terrorists, plus to get the politicians to enact legislation to further increase the police powers of the state moving forward with this one world order, new age material. So about this book. A new documentary has been released regarding the Oklahoma City bombing. Which one do I have? Politics and Terror. And this one's a noble lie. I have the book Politics and Terror, which shows that with copious evidence that the bombing was not an act of one man, Timothy McVeigh, and that McVeigh was but a mind control patsy, just like a lot of these other shooters apparently were on some kind of mind control or under control of the government. Patsies, told to be spies or doing things, thinking they're going to be a spy or a super agent. For sinister forces within the U.S. government who wanted to use that event as a pretext to finally pass Bill Clinton's anti-terrorism bill, which would not have passed without something of that magnitude to spur it. There you go. A couple more comments here. Hoppy Heidelberg OKC bombing was designed to get Clinton's anti-terrorism bill passed. The following interview with Hoppy Heidelberg by the former grand jury member who was threatened provide a good overview of the situation, presentation of the evidence for conspiracy on the part of elements in the U.S. government, especially the Justice Department. Aaron Dykes talks with Hoppy Heidelberg, who sat on the Oklahoma grand jury in 1995, impaneled to look into the OK City bombing, as well as filmmaker of A Noble Lie, James Lane. Hoppy would ultimately challenge the evidence cooked up by the government in this case. He believed the claim made by Terry Nichols in 2006 that McVeigh had been handled by a high-level FBI agent, was being handled. And according to that book I read, there seems to be plenty of evidence of that. Former grand jury Hoppy Heidelberg reveals governor inside job at OK bombing. The problem with Terry McVeigh is he wanted to be something like a Green Beret or something, a SEAL. But they said he wasn't quite, whether physically or mentally, qualified. So I think what they did is they offered him a different job as a spy into the militia groups. And he was participating in all that as a dupe. My evaluation from my research so far. Proof, the feds did the Oklahoma City bombing. So you remember, this is me back in 2011 doing my research. What am I to think? What is anybody to think? And does it make me an anti-government belligerent to research this stuff, to read these books, these hundreds of books, thousands of documents, see thousands of videos, hundreds of magazines, thousands of pictures? On a Friday, December 16, 2011 edition of the InfoWars Nightly News, Alex interviews guest James Lane and Holland van Nieuwenhof about the new film, A Noble Lie. So you can go on YouTube and probably watch A Noble Lie, which details their years of investigation, research on the false flag that was the Oklahoma City bombing. So you can see where I got some of my opinions. People who are spending years researching one tidbit of this stuff, while I am investigating the whole scope of everything and how it goes together. A tremendous amount of research, which I think, is a good perspective. And there should be people focusing in on the little pieces. But we need to connect the dots to the whole thing. FBI complicit in OK bombing terror attack. K-9 unit police officer tells all. OK officer Terry Yankee's death was an inside job. That's the guy I think I was reading about that really upset me. In the groundbreaking interview on December 24th, 2011, InfoWars Nightly News host Rob Dew speaks with Don Browning, a K-9 police officer in OKC, and Holland van Nieuwenhof, writer and producer of the already classic expose, A Noble Lie. Browning, who found many living and dead in the Murrah rubble, discusses how he received thinly veiled threats from the feds after he began asking questions about the inconsistencies he witnessed in part of a continuing series of interviews re-examining the official lies of the Oklahoma City bombing, which paved the way for 9/11 and false flag events yet to come. So Terry Yankee, I think, was one of the officers who saw bombs strapped to the pilings, and I think he saw too much. I believe he was killed for that, if I remember correctly. I can hear it now, some people saying, Rick, you're crazy, there's no conspiracy theory. The United States wouldn't be spending 90% of the GNP, gross national product, on taking over the world, would they? They would be spending the resources and wealth of this country on the people in the USA, wouldn't they? That would be the wish. Here's another document, the Worldwide Network of U.S. Military Bases. Sometimes I get tired of speaking. But things need to be said. So I pre-read this stuff, then I make these videos. So the Worldwide Network of U.S. Military Bases, here I am back in 2011, saying, oh my, this is crazy, you think? The worldwide control of humanity's economic, social, and political activities is under the helm of U.S. corporate and military power. Well, who owns the corporations, mostly across the United States, newspapers and all that? The Zionist Jewish folks and banksters, Rothschild, Rockefeller, probably controlling our military, controlling our presidents, controlling our politicians. So who really controls everything, and who is using the U.S. as the military arm for the world, and preparing to turn that same arm against the USA citizens? Because once the people wake up, the people won't tolerate this, so then the people can't be tolerated. Like in that Oregon shooting, where the one guy was shot the other day, and the other people were thrown in jail. Underlying this process are various schemes of direct and indirect military intervention. These U.S.-sponsored strategies ultimately consist in a process of global subordination. So this is globalresearch.ca, Center for Research on Globalization. You can go look that up. The 2000 Global Report, published in 1980, had outlined the state of the world. So this is back as far as 1980, and goes way back beyond that. By focusing on so-called level of threats. So with the Oklahoma City bombing, 9/11, and everything else, they have to raise the level of threats perceived by the American people to get away with what they're doing, which might negatively influence or undermine U.S. interests. 20 years later, U.S. strategists, in an attempt to justify their military interventions in different parts of the world, have conceptualized the greatest fraud in U.S. history, namely the global war on terrorism. The latter, using a fabricated pretext, constitutes a global war against all those who oppose U.S. control, world domination. A modern form of slavery, instrumented through militarization of the free market, has unfolded. Now, who are the culprits behind this? Freemasonic lodges, Illuminati, the Jesuits, the Vatican, Zionists, all these secret mystery school of Babylon organizations. All right, moving on this document. Major elements of the conquest and world domination strategy by the U.S. refer to the control of the world economy and its financial markets. So you know what sustainability, biodiversity, global warming, and all that stuff is really about. They want to control everything. Just because you own 20 acres and you find some minerals under the ground, they're not yours anymore. Remember the TV show Beverly Hillbillies? You got oil in your land? Black gold. Let's move to Hollywood. Things like that won't happen anymore because we the people will not have control over our own wealth, resources, lives, health, or anything. Slavery is really tough. So moving on, the taking over of all natural resources, primary resources and non-renewable sources of energy. The latter constitute the cornerstone of the U.S. power through the activities of its multinational corporations. And who are they, the multinational corporations? Zionism say anything? The elite Jewish people who want to control the world? Not all the good Jewish people who are Bible-believing, God-believing Jewish people who have been trying to warn the rest of us, as we've seen in my videos. But all these forces that have turned into witchcraft and Luciferianism, apparently part of the gray alien, reptilian, flying saucer thing. Whoever these intelligence are behind the scenes, they are not benevolent, they are malevolent. The U.S. has established its control over 191 governments, which are members of the United Nations. The conquest, occupation, and otherwise supervision of these various regions of the world is supported by an integrated network of military bases and installation which covers the entire planet, continents, oceans, and outer space. All this pertains to the workings of an extensive empire, the exact dimensions of which are not always easy to ascertain. Now you can see how sky spraying and HARP systems and weather control and weather warfare will come into play here. If these different countries don't go along, they won't exist. Known and documented from information in the public domain, including the annual reports of the U.S. Congress, we have a fairly good understanding of the structure of U.S. military expenditure, the networks of U.S. military bases, and the shape of the U.S. military strategic configuration in different regions of the world. Try reading all this. It's not easy. The objective of this article is to build a summary profile of the world network of military bases which are under the jurisdiction and or control of the U.S. In the second section in this article, worldwide popular resistance movements directed against U.S. military bases and their various projects will be outlined. The military bases. Military bases are conceived for training purposes, preparation, stockage of military equipment used by national armies throughout the world. Air Force bases, Army and land bases, Navy bases, communications and spy bases. Air Base in Diego Garcia, located in the Indian Ocean. So here's one in the Indian Ocean. Here's another base, Diego Garcia, an aerial view of 2 B-52s and 6 KC-135s. So I guess on this island, they have these planes. In the Indian Ocean. So something mysterious could happen tomorrow by somebody giving an executive order to that base in the Indian Ocean, blame it on somebody else, nuke a portion of Israel and blame it on Iran, and the whole world goes after Iran or something. Something crazy. Whatever they're doing, they're serious about it, and it might behoove we the people to wake up. The main sources of information on these military bases is C. Johnson, the NATO Watch Committee, the International Network for the Abolition of Foreign Military Bases, revealed that the U.S. operates in or controls 700 to 800 military bases worldwide. And here people are living on the streets homeless in the United States of America. As much, and that's just a tidbit of what the government is spending on this New World Order program. underground facilities all over the U.S., hollow point bullets, FEMA camps. They have plans for us, it seems. According to my research. Listen, everything I'm researching all these years and all these books and all these magazines and all these videos, and everybody out there is a liar except for these people planning the New World Order that they talk about. Alright, in this regard, Huge Adrian and Bob Wing's 2002 map entitled U.S. Military Troops and Bases Around the World, The Cost of Permanent War, confirms the presence of U.S. military personnel in 156 countries. In total, there are 255,000 U.S. military personnel deployed worldwide. And many others, I'm sure. Alright, U.S. military bases worldwide, 2001 to 2003. 730 military installations and bases in over 50 countries. Bases on a selective examination of military based on a selective examination of military bases in North America, Latin America, Western Europe, Middle East, Central Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, Japan. Several of these military bases are being used for intelligence purposes. New selected sites are spy bases, satellite-related spy bases. The world and territories under the responsibility of the Combatant Command or under the command structure. So you got the U.S. North Command, the U.S. South Command, the U.S. Europe Command, the U.S. Pacific Command, the U.S. Central Command. Oh my! As I keep saying, we're in trouble. That's a statement. The South Command, NATO military bases, the global deployment of military personnel. So it has a breakdown on this document you can go look up. The operational cost of the worldwide military network. So apparently back in 1998 it was about $350 billion, and now it's $650 billion a year. Imagine what $650 billion could do for we people. Then they talk about the dollar crashing. If they crash the dollar, they have an ulterior motive. None of this is going to go away. They're still going to pay for all of that. Military and other staff required numbered 1,332,000. But those figures do not include the money required for the global war on terrorism. In other words, these figures largely pertain to regular defense budget. The battle for oil, so I guess they want to make sure they control all the Middle East to control all the oil. Which a lot of us already knew, that's why they were taking over the Middle East. Besides ridding it of the populations, and apparently are going to repopulate it with all these people arriving in Israel. And maybe they'll get some other people for slaves. The world is a-changing. Military bases used for the control of strategic renewable resources. You like these nice words they use. Why don't they just admit that they're stealing everything and they don't want people in the world to have anything, which is already defined in the Talmud and in the other books, which we'll take a look at here in a second. The U.S. tends to view the Earth's surface as a vast territory to conquer, occupy, and exploit. Again, who controls the U.S.? When they talk about the U.S., foreigners actually think it's people like me and the people watching this video. When in reality, it's people who are in these buildings with security guards that you have to empty your pockets and show everything you got to get in and get out of. Humanity is being controlled and enslaved by the network of U.S. military bases. And I'm sad to say this article is a little wrong because they're doing the same thing to the Europeans, the EU, and other people all over the world. This militarization process is characterized by armed aggression and warfare, as well as interventions called cooperation agreements. And then we all know them as Pacific treaties and North American treaties and all that stuff. So look up this document. Obviously, I didn't do it justice on any of these. I'd be here for a much longer period of time. All right, another document I got back in 2011. Breaks for corporations. Cuts for the middle class. It's funny, but the representative, Scott Randolph, sent this to me. Scott Randolph's report. Breaks for corporations, cuts for middle class. This week, the Republican majority in the House passed a bill to clear the way to fire thousands of teachers and significantly increase class sizes for over 600 courses. They face a $1.3 billion budget cut. Meanwhile, we're sending $650 billion for the 800 bases worldwide, so we need to take it away from the school teachers. School districts will now be able to fire teachers while remaining in compliance with the constitutional class size requirements. The bill is now in the Senate. Their budget will cut everything from public schools and affordable housing to road building, beach renourishment, and elderly care. So they're going to cut all that. At the same time, the budget will raise tuition in state universities and colleges, institute a 3% income tax on teachers, police officers, firefighters, and other public sector workers, and also raid transportation funds. A move that will destroy 20,000 to 30,000 private sector jobs. The proposed budget also makes several cuts to those most in need. Developmentally mentally disabled. So I suppose Representative Scott Randolph would know more than me. So here I am back in 2011 reading this. Meanwhile, the governor has handed out $20,000 raises to his political appointees. So they're taking money from the school teachers, the elderly, and everybody else. Road building, affordable housing, public schools. And the governor at the same time is giving $20,000 raises to his political appointees. Anything wrong with this, you think? Finally, while telling the public that our state is broke, the majority continues to hand out hundreds of millions of dollars in additional new tax breaks to big corporations. Well, there you have that. So here I am formulating my opinion about the world back in 2011 with that kind of information. Meanwhile, the Navy shows off powerful new laser weapons. Can't make this up. A futuristic laser mounted on a speeding cruiser successfully blasted a bombing, weaving boat from the waters of the Pacific Ocean. The first test at sea of such a gun, and fresh milestone in the Navy's quest to retrofit the fleet with a host of laser weapons, the Navy announced Friday. So here I am in 2011, going, oh my, reading this other stuff in 2011, oh my. The Governor's giving his appointees $20,000 raises, and the school teachers and police officers and everybody else are getting 3% tax increases. We were able to have a destructive effect, on a high-speed cruising target, Chief of Navy Research Rear Admiral Nevin Carr told Fox News. The test occurred Wednesday near San Nicolas Island off the coast of Central California, in the Pacific Ocean Test Range, from a laser gun mounted on the deck of the Navy's self-defense test ship, former USS Paul Foster. In the video of the event, the small boat can be seen catching fire and ultimately bursting into flames, a conflagration caused by the Navy's distant gun. The weapon, called the Maritime Laser Demonstrator, was built in partnership with Northrop Grumman. It focused on 15 kilowatts of energy by concentrating it through a solid medium, hence the name. Wow. To begin to address the cruise missile threat, we need to get up to hundreds of kilowatts, Carr said. The Navy is working on just such a gun, of course. Remember, they have plans for us. They could put these lasers on top of mountains or tall buildings and communities. Zip, zip, start killing people if you're out on the street past curfew. Or if you're carrying a cell phone and they've targeted you as an anti-government belligerent, an insurgent, didn't want to give up your gun, a terrorist, and have a laser on top of a tall building. All computerized control. I'm just using my brain thinking about this. Called the FEL, the free electron laser, which doesn't use a gain medium and is therefore more versatile. It was tested in February, consuming a blistering 500 kilovolts of energy. And also in the Navy's futuristic arsenal, a so-called railgun, which uses an electromagnetic current to accelerate a non-explosive bullet at several times the speed of sound. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, they want to fence off all of the land that we can't go on in this biodiversity. Does this sound good? And you got all these greenies out there thinking, oh yeah, we need to do this. They don't have a clue what's really going on. All right, we got another document here. Should be a concern to any patriotic American. Back in 2011, an estimate 3.3 trillion missing from the U.S. Treasury. Go look this stuff up I've been showing you. Doesn't do any good if nobody wants to look it up and share it with their friends, print them out. While Americans worry about disastrous effects of our economy, of the accounting scandal of Enron, WorldCom, and elsewhere, an even larger accounting scandal has somehow escaped the public consciousness. According to estimates, the Department of Defense and the Department of Housing and Urban Development cannot account for over $3 trillion allotted to them by Congress, amounting to thousands of dollars in missing money for every man, woman, and child in the country. Well, it costs a lot of money to take over the world. People ought to understand that. Not. This story hasn't gone completely unreported. In a January 29 article entitled "The War on Waste," CBS News quoted Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld as saying, according to some estimates, we cannot track 2.3 trillion in transactions. The article went on to quote retired Vice Admiral Jack Shanahan, former commander of the Navy's Second Fleet, as saying that while President George W. Bush's 2003 budget proposal calls for $48 billion in new Pentagon spending, with good financial oversight, we could find $48 billion in loose change in that building without having to hit the taxpayers. One of the most knowledgeable and effective critics of this epidemic of fiscal mismanagement by our government is Catherine Austin Fitts, former managing director of Wall Street investment bank Dillon Read and former HUD assistant secretary in the first Bush administration. Now a resident of Hickory Valley, Tennessee, and president of Solari Inc., a community-based investment firm, Finn writes in her article, "The Missing Money, Why the Citizens of Tennessee Are Working Harder and Getting Less." Can anybody see that they are taking a mere pittance of the GNP for the people and a bulk of it for this world domination and military equipment and spying equipment and so much more? It just boggles the mind. Literally boggles the mind. It's just this much on world domination and this much for people. Do the percentages. Take each person and just say if we had 1/10 of this money and divided it by 300 million of us, let's say 150 million families, how much would each family get? Somebody controls the U.S. and is sucking all the resources out of our country. And I'm confident that probably in the EU, they're doing it there too, and elsewhere in the world, like it says here, they control 198 countries with military bases out there, 178. In June 2001, the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee, under the leadership of Senator Fred Thompson, published its study, Government at the Brink. The study describes the failure of federal government agencies to maintain reliable financial systems and or to publish required independent annual audited financial statements. The President's initial 2002 budget, before increases for 911, proposed that approximately 85% of all federal appropriations be awarded to the very same agencies. The Thompson study states that either 1, failed to maintain reliable financial systems, 2, failed to publish trustworthy, or in some cases any, independent certified financial statements as required by law, or both. And I'm only reading my highlighted portions. Go look up these documents, as I keep saying. I can't read it all, just like the book reviews I did. I can't read them all. Investigative reporter Kelly Patricia Omerio wrote about the scandal in the August 10, 2001 issue of Insight magazine. She quoted DOD Deputy Inspector General Robert Lieberman making the following remark before Congress. The extensive DOD efforts to compile and audit the fiscal year 2000 financial statements for the department as a whole and for the 10 subsidiaries, reporting entities like the Army, Navy, and Air Force general funds could not overcome the impediments caused by poor systems and unreliable documentation of transactions and assets. Source InsightMagazine.com. And one more page, I think, here. An additional problem with making the Pentagon physically accountable was exposed in the July 22, 1999 article in New York Times by Tim Weiner, titled Pentagon Defied Laws and Misused Funds Panel Reports. So then Weiner got caught later playing with his wiener, apparently. He got destroyed. So I wonder if he got destroyed for writing that article right there. The Constitution is pretty clear on this, continued Lewis later in the article. It says no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, added Weiner. The law and Pentagon procedures allow military officials to shift funds from one account to another, but not without telling Congress. So they're doing things illegally, And you and I doing a little minuscule thing will be thrown in prison or maybe assassinated while they're doing these humongous things, taking over the world. According to Fitz in the April 18th item in the Potomac Tech Journal, the company credited with the 59, getting tired of speaking, $59 billion loss at HUD had been awarded the contract to redesign DOT's current business processors. So the organization responsible for losing a $59 billion loss is going to redesign the DOT's current business processors. So I suppose if you can figure out how to lose a whole lot of money, they want you. Wrote Taylor Lincoln of the Potomac Tech Journal. Potomac area firms American Management Systems and DynoCorp have won slices of the $50 million to $100 million Defense Department financial management project, for which IBM Corp is the lead contractor. Fairfax, Virginia-based AMS said today, AMS, along with subcontractors DynCorp and Lockheed, developed the faulty HUDCAPS financial software used by HUD. The federal government is breaking the law as a matter of intentional ongoing policy. At this point, there needs to be a way to place sufficient control on the cash payments to require compliance with the law. As Americans watch their 401k programs evaporate in the current economy, and I might add lose their homes, vehicles, jobs, and everything else, and wonder if Social Security will be there for them when they retire, it seems that another cause for grave concern has arisen due to our government's lack of financial transparency and responsibility. Look up Reese.com. They do great videos on YouTube. Alright, I guess people have heard of Michael Moore. America is not broke. Well, obviously from what they're spending here on the military and world domination, they're far from broke. But they don't have enough money left over for us, I presume. And there's too many people to be fed and housed in this country that they don't need, I presume. With all this high-tech equipment, they don't need humans anymore, it seems. So anyways, Michael Moore, whatever you might think about Michael Moore, the truth in these words cannot be denied. The inequities of wealth, income, and power in America have become extreme. We have been duped and robbed. Let us put aside our differences between liberals and conservatives, Republicans and Democrats, religious or not, and let us take back our country by taking back our power over finance, credit, and exchange. I'm for that. There's a video called America is Not Broke. You can probably find it on YouTube. Contrary to what those in power would like you to believe, so that you'll give up your pension, cut your wages, and settle for the life your great-grandparents had, America is not broke. Not by a long shot. The country is awash in wealth and cash. It's just that it's not in your hands. It has been transferred to the greatest heist in history, from the workers and consumers to the banks and the portfolios of the uber-rich. Today, just 400 Americans have the same wealth as half of all Americans combined. Let me say that again. 400 obscenely rich people, most of whom benefited in some way from the multi-trillion-dollar taxpayer bailout of 2008, now have as much loot, stock, and property as the assets of 155 million Americans combined. If you can't bring yourself to call that a financial coup d'etat, then you are simply not being honest about what you know in your heart to be true. Some comments here by other people. But there have been times when unions represented the public, government represented the public, and corporations benefited the public. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just put it all together and say they all represented the public. Unfortunately, it can't be done. The very concept of representation assumes that there is a they and we are a we, who by your own conclusions are partially representative. Who exactly is going to decide which one wins this time? And we know who controls. There's more there. The United States. And the world. The people, the Illuminati, the Zionists, and those organizations. So here I am back there in 2011. And we all know about Fukushima. Anyways, this article says, ocean can handle radioactive leaks. You're not going to believe this. Releases of radioactive water into the ocean near Japan's stricken nuclear complex shouldn't pose a widespread danger to sea animals or people who might eat them, experts say. And you don't think the evil people control our newspapers? That's basically because of dilution. It's a very large ocean, noted William Burnett of Florida State University. There's more here I can read, but it's just too bizarre. Here's some commenters here. So why is it when industries pollute on a massive scale, it has no real effect, according to the experts, but when we peasants pollute, we need to be taxed, fined, and jailed? Oh, another commenter says, Viola, out of disaster. Suddenly we find the solution to nuclear waste. Dump it into those vast oceans. Why did the experts keep this solution to themselves all these years? This guy's being cynical, of course. Looks like the experts got affected by radiation already. They're starting to talk funny. I guess the radiated sea life are not told to travel outside the no fishing zone. If contamination from radiation is not as bad as we have been told over the years, then why is Chernobyl so deserted and shunned on? When you said experts, you meant paid liars, right? My brother worked in the Gulf cleanup. As soon as the media stopped going out to the beaches, BP shut the whole thing down. Wave after wave of oil was still rolling in, and they were told that the threat was over and sent home. Alright, closing in on this video. Another document I got back then from the Washington Post. Breaking news alert. Radiation levels at Japan's nuclear power plant 100,000 times above normal. Leaked water from Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant showed the highest radiation readings yet, compounding the risk for hundreds of workers trying to repair the facility cooling system. 17 workers have been exposed to high levels of radiation and airborne radioactivity in the unit. 2 buildings remain so high that a worker there had to reach his yearly occupational exposure limit in 15 minutes. All right, let's see if we can get this thing done here. The government, here I am in 2011, last-minute agreement avoids shutdown. Nearing the midnight deadline, leaders in Congress strike a deal to cut $38 billion from the budget. This is historic. Meanwhile, Egypt's army kills one dispersing overnight protester. Japan bans planting rice in radioactive soil. Bahrain police detain beat rights activists. EU finance minister defend austerity. And bombardment blunts Libyan rebel advance. So as I said, the gloom and doom news for all those years just kept coming and coming and coming. All right, here we go. So now it's 2016 and the talk on YouTube videos everywhere is Planet Nibiru. And to turn some more light on the subject, the sun is going down. So, new planet found in our solar system. So here I am back there years ago hearing about these things. Too far out to be easily spotted by telescopes, so nobody can see it. The potential unseen planet appears to be making its presence felt by disturbing the orbits of so-called Kuiper Belt objects, said Rodney Gomes, an astronomer for the National Observatory in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. Is Planet X Nibiru real? So over the years, this stuff just keeps on coming and coming and coming. This threat makes you wonder what it's really all about. So this guy posted, yes, it is real, and yes, we will be able to see it soon enough. Supervising astronomer for the U.S. Naval Observatory, Robert Harrington, studied Planet X since its initial discovery by NASA. And apparently, Robert Harrington mysteriously died. The video shows the late Dr. Harrington soon after the discovery, so you can look this up. Just different topics that were out there. Alright, I got one last document, I think. Well, I got two. China joins Russia, orders military to prepare for World War III. So here I am doing my research in 2011. I don't know where I discovered this. But you know, I'm reading it going, man, what am I going to do? What's going on in the future? It's 2016. The Grim Ministry of Defense Bulletin issued to Prime Minister Putin and President Medvedev today states that President Hu had agreed in principle that the only way to stop the West aggression led by the United States is through direct and immediate military action. So we've read all this stuff and seen all this stuff in my video so far. And the Chinese leader has ordered his naval forces to prepare for warfare. Who calls for war joins Chinese Rear Admiral and prominent military commentator Zhang Zhihong, who likewise warned this past week that China will not hesitate to protect Iran even with a third world war. The Russian general Nikolai Makarov, who grimly stated last week, I do not rule out our local and regional armed conflicts developing into a large-scale war, including using nuclear weapons. Well, that's not good for business, talk like that. Here I am in 2011 trying to pay my bills, run my business, and doing research, and I'm reading stuff like this. The raising of global tensions between the East and West was exploded this past fortnight when Russian Ambassador Vladimir Tuturenko and two of his aides returning from Syria were brutally assaulted and put in a hospital by Qatar security forces aided by the CIA and British MI6. Agents attempting to gain access to diplomatic pouches containing information from Syria intelligences that the United States was flooding Syria and Iran with the same U.S.-backed al-Qaeda mercenaries who toppled the Libyan government. So these mercenaries, called al-Qaeda, work for the CIA, now called ISIS, FYI. Further evidence in these diplomatic pouches, this bulletin says, reveals that the United States is preparing the ultimate solution to the Middle East crisis should nuclear war break out by attacking Syria and Iran with lethal biological agents and intended to kill tens of millions of innocent citizens. Son of a gun. Doing this research is not really pleasant sometimes, reading this stuff. And another document back then, H.G. Wells, Prophet for the New World Order. I keep mentioning H.G. Wells. Since I read his book, New World Order, this guy wrote a book about the time tunnel and all kinds of futuristic stuff. High-level Mason, by the way. Wells psychologically conditioned the public to accept the stages of the New World Order as if they were self-evident. That's what they're doing. By Fritz Springmeier. Look up Fritz Springmeier and then Henry Mackay on this document. Two people I talk about all the time. Fritz Springmeier and Henry Mackay. Henry Mackay wrote the book Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. Fritz Springmeier wrote the book Bloodlines of the Illuminati. So there's two very smart men right there. Fritz Springmeier and Henry Mackay, writing about H.G. Wells, and I read the book and made a video about him. He's the one who said that we humans are animals not to be trusted. This is what the Freemasons, Zionist people, Jewish Talmud people think we are. Animals, cattle, beast, and profane. Those are their words, not mine. Is there any proof that events in the world are following a script? The question has intrigued me because many people with inside knowledge have told me of attending meetings where the script of a future was outlined. 200-year plan, 40-year plan, 20, 10, and 5-year plans. The futuristic predictions of H.G. Wells, a socialist Masonic prophet, proved that indeed much more is contrived than the man in the street could imagine. Written in 1913, Wells, The World Set Free, predicted the use of atom bombs and the effect of nuclear war long before scientists considered the possibility. In other books, Wells said a new world order would come about by the elite controlling the air and sea lanes, as well as energy production. Not only did H.G. Wells predict modern warfare, the bombing of London, atom bombs, the League of Nations, stealth fighters over Iraq, space flight, mapping out in detail how a new world order could be created. And he participated in causing events to take place. He was a major player in creating the League of Nations. When a Russian Revolution occurred, H.G. Wells, who was known simply as H.G., went to Russia to trade ideas with Lenin on how to follow up the revolution to create a new world order. So they are following a plan. If you watched all the stuff in this video, is there any doubt? Oklahoma City bombing, 9/11, these were meant to sway public opinion, to have these senators and representatives pass legislation, police powers. Jade Helm, 15, last year, putting troops and equipment all over the United States, stirring a lot of people up, concerning people, of course, and so much more craziness. They disagreed and parted, disliking each other. The disagreement stemmed over H.G.'s vision that the elite families, through business and technology, would create the new order. So that's why small group of people own everything. And those of us who resist will have to be killed, probably. And those who don't resist will be enslaved. See how they like that? Apathy is not a good thing. So elite families, that's H.G.'s vision, through business and technology would create the New World Order. Lenin wanted to socialize things directly with a strong government. So it's either the corporations and the elites control us, or strong governments control us. Either way, the elites will live in opulence, eat well, live in castles, and dance and sing, while the rest of us cry and watch the children die. and have no future. That's what it seems. Much later in 1934, H.G. visited personally with FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in the United States. This was prior to World War II. And Stalin in Moscow. I must be getting tired. Mexico from Moscow. By the way, all three were Freemasons. So Stalin, FDR, and H.G. were Freemasons. After visiting with FDR, H.G. declared that the United States was the most effective transmitting instrument possible for the coming of the New World Order. So here we have 178 bases and control 189 countries. So I guess H.G.'s plan is well underway. He felt that FDR was incorporating H.G.'s open conspiracy ideas for bringing in the New World Order that H.G. had been advocating. Readers may realize that from this that the U.S., the USSR, and the U.K. have all been guided toward the same goal and have been taking different paths. So it's my opinion that they're all in cahoots, the people at the high level, not the citizens of any of these nations. All right, now look at the titles of H.G.'s books. Anticipation, Things to Come, and the way they were written. And it is evident that he is psychologically conditioning the public to accept the stages of the New World Order as if they were self-evident. He was a master at this. And indeed, when I hear the elite today, I hear echoes of H.G. Wells's ideas. For instance, David Rockefeller at the 1991 Bilderberg meeting, the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government which will never again know war, but only peace and prosperity for the whole of humanity. Yeah, that's why they bought 350,000 or 450,000 million hollow point bullets, FEMA camps, and are killing people all over the Middle East. Economic destruction in the USA. The U.S. Georgia Guidestones say they want to reduce the population by 80%, maybe 90%. They need just enough people left alive to do the work for them. Contrary to assumptions by many readers of Aldous Huxley, Orson Welles, and H.G. Wells, these authors were not opposed to their prophetic views of Big Brother's one-world dictatorship. H.G. strongly believed in radical eugenics to kill the inferior races, stuff I've been saying, and useless eaters, stuff I've been saying. He believed the state should educate people and control their minds, stuff I've been saying, to obediently serve the state. He believed in social engineering. He was opposed to Christians being allowed to teach their children about God, stuff I've been saying, and religious toleration. If you were an Illuminati insider, like the late Masonic prophet Manly P. Hall, who served as the Grand Master in both the Illuminati and Freemasonry, you would understand the esoteric witchcraft reference that H.G. made in A Modern Utopia, page 67, that the heir dictatorship's New World Order would be a Bacon's visionary House of Solomon. There we go, Jerusalem, Israel again. This statement alone links H.G.'s thinking with the Illuminati's occult plans, witchcraft again. It shows H.G. was an insider with knowledge of the plans. Of course, along with inside knowledge, H.G. contained an intense intellectual curiosity, a keen comprehensive brain, great willpower, and a disdain for the common man and the Christian God. So he didn't like Jesus or God. He revealed in The Invisible King that his deity was a personification of the 5-year plan. Reading from the script. So they got a script. This whole thing is all planned out that I've been saying. The powers that be have intentionally manipulated the crime rate, in line with Wells' prediction that a police state would grow in response to the growing crime threat. Born in 1866, Wells wrote a series of books that spell out how the coming of the New World Order would come about. He had included in his references to futuristic dreams, I'm going too far here. He wrote these books, A Happy Turning, A Dream of Life, which makes reference to the futuristic dreams. He included Walking with Jesus, who in H.G.'s repeated dreams was also disappointed in humanity for its stupidity and indifference. One of the concepts of Wells, Open Conspiracy, that's the book I made a video of, was that many people worldwide would openly contribute to the creation of the New World Order. This parallels another occult prophet, Alice Bailey, another person I talk about, the Theophist Society, whose books were published by Lucas Trust Publishing, formerly known as Lucifer Trust, and her ideas in externalization of the hierarchy, where she predicts that things done in secret in the occult world would be mainstreamed to bring about the New World Order. Well, so much here, but I've been talking about, like the Super Bowl Satanic Halftime Show. Did you see Beyonce in the 2016 show last night? Interesting show. For those familiar with how the Illuminati have set up groups like the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, TLC, the Trilateral Commission, will take note that HG was RIIA, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which is the British equivalent of the CFR. So I'm running out of energy. Thank you for watching this video. Incredible information. I shall continue to make these videos. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Rick Miracle reporting.